Hi, second graders. It is Mrs. Clark here. This week in math, we are going to continue our adventure in learning about measurement. On Friday, we were able to listen to a story called How Big is a Foot? And in the story, we learned about where the standard unit called foot comes from. If you don't remember the story that well, let me refresh your memories. There was once a king who wanted to build a bed for his wife, and he wanted to send the carpenter's apprentice to build the bed. And the king decided, he looked at his feet and he decided, okay, well, if I build a bed that is 3 feet wide and 6 feet long, my wife, the queen, should be able to fit in that. But what the king did not realize when he sent the apprentice to build the bed for him was that the king's feet were much larger than the apprentice's feet. And so when the apprentice brought the bed back to the queen couldn't fit in it. She was too big because the bed he had made was too small. So at the end of the story, the land decided that from now on, they were going to use the king's feet as their standard unit of measurement. So every single person in the land was going to get a copy of how long the king's foot was, and they were going to use that to build things from then on out. Well, I was looking at my ruler the other day. I pulled this out, and it got me to thinking, I think I know why they call this a ruler. We learned in the story on Friday that the king's foot was exactly this long. It was exactly 12 inches long. And that's what we call a foot today. Well, if this ruler is exactly the same size as the king's foot, every time I look at the ruler, I start thinking about that story. And then it got me to thinking, I know a synonym for the word king. Do you know a synonym for the word king? It's a ruler. Get it? Every time I look at a ruler, I think about that story, and it makes me remember the king's foot is exactly this long. So I really enjoyed that story, and I hope you guys enjoyed that story as well. So today, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be talking about something that's on the ruler. We're going to be talking about inches today. So let's go ahead and get started with that. If you have a ruler in your classroom, it may look like this, or it may look like a little bit different. But if you have a ruler in your classroom, I would like for you to hold that ruler in your hand, and I would like you to go ahead and take a closer look. I want you to look at it really closely. What do you notice about the ruler? Go ahead and take some time right now to pause the video and talk about a couple of the things that you notice about the ruler, things that are on it. Go ahead and take some time to talk about that with your teacher. Thank you for taking some time to talk about what you noticed about the ruler with your teacher. Some of you may have noticed that there are numbers 0 all the way to 12 on the inches side. Now, this ruler also has other numbers that are smaller on the opposite side, but that is a conversation for another day. Today, we're mostly noticing and talking about the inches on a ruler. So also, maybe something you noticed was that the spaces between the numbers are the same size. If I take my finger and I find the space from 0 to 1, and then hop from 1 to 2, and then 2 to 3, that space is going to be exactly the same every single time. Another thing you might have noticed, some of the lines on the ruler are longer than the other lines. There is also a longer line for each number. There is a shorter line marked about halfway between each of the numbers, and that's going to be the halfway mark. So again, there are the numbers 0. Even though we don't see the number 0, 0 starts where the very first line is. We have the numbers 0 all the way to 12 on a ruler because 1 foot equals 12 inches. We also noticed that there are long lines, there are shorter lines, there is a medium-sized line right between each of the numbers that shows the halfway mark. So there are lots of things that we could have noticed about the markings on the ruler. So one thing that I want to explain to you about the inches is that the space between each of the numbers, or the intervals between each number, is what we call a standard unit of measure. And that standard unit of measure is called the inch, I-N-C-H, inch. The abbreviation for inch is IN. It looks like this. INCH. A shorter way to write that is IN with a period. That's what we call an abbreviation. It's a way of writing a word in a shorter way. So our measurement system of inches, feet, pounds, quarts, and so on, which is used for everyday purposes in the United States, is called the U.S. Customary System of Measurement. Again, it's called the U.S. Customary System of Measurement. So when we learn about feet, when we learn about inches, centimeters, all of that is part of the U.S. Customary System of Measurement. So go ahead and take a really close look at your ruler. Let me ask you this. Why is there a small line in the space between each number? Well, that is what shows the halfway mark. So halfway between each of the numbers, there is a line that shows that it's halfway through to the next number. Sometimes when we measure things, we go to the exact right number of inches. Sometimes when we measure things, sometimes our item that we are measuring stops between two of the numbers. If I had something that I was measuring and it stopped halfway between the 3 and the 4, I would say that that was 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches. So not only can we tell how many inches something is, if something we are measuring stops in between two numbers, we can show that it's halfway through one of the numbers. Thank you for exploring the ruler with me and inches with me just a little bit further. Today, we are going to get some practice for the first time in measuring something with inches. So you are going to open up your math journal to pages 84 and 85. There are certain objects on those pages that you are going to get practice in measuring. When you do measure some of those items, make sure that you line your ruler from the 0 line to the end of your measurement. Thank you so much, boys and girls, for listening today. We are going to continue learning about feet and inches and centimeters, some other measurements as the weeks go by. So thank you so much for listening. See you tomorrow.